Hey everybody, welcome into the Irish NFL show. It is week 14 tonight. I can't believe it's week 14. It seems like only 5 minutes ago that Mac Jones went for 19 yards, but we're here delighted to look ahead to the game tonight. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings coming off that defeat in Detroit last weekend, trying to bounce back tonight. Steelers playing the Ravens last weekend. Both very interesting games for neutrals. We are honored, delighted to be joined by from the Athletic and loads of other outlets. I've literally got a paragraph here, but Arif Hassan, it's an honor to have you on, especially a few hours before Thursday night football. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good, tired. I'm ready for the playoffs now. Like Monday night killed me. Like Sunday night football, Monday night football, two big games, and I'm just like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, it's they drag on for a while, that's for sure.
Arif, we ask everyone this, and like, look, have you ever been to Ireland before? Did you get a chance to go over to the games in London, even with the Vikings
Yeah, I
playing?
I I I went over to the London games. I actually was going to take a day trip to Ireland because one of the things I wanted to do was talk about Viking history along with Vikings history, right? And heading over to some Irish monasteries would have been a really fantastic way to kind of round that out. But fortunately, I couldn't make it work out with my schedule, so I wasn't able to make it over to Ireland then. Had a couple of other opportunities to go to Ireland, and have unfortunately missed out every time. It's actually right now, it's actually my top European because it used to be Iceland that I wanted to go to, but I was able to head there this last summer. And so now Ireland's at the top of my list. It's like Ireland, certain parts of Spain that I haven't been to yet. And yeah, I've been to a good chunk of Europe, and I still haven't been able to make it over to the Isles.
Well, we would love to welcome you to Ireland, and it's not just the monasteries or the round towers that you can even see right over my shoulders, but like Dublin is obviously an old Viking city, so all sorts of stuff to check out. But we are here to talk football, and look, I joke on our show now that this current Vikings team would play both the Super Bowl 24 49ers or the 2017, yeah, 0-16 Browns close. Who are the 2021 Vikings?
Yeah, well, they're anything but average. They're either really incredible or really awful. People say they play to their opponent, and that's almost entirely true, that they'll play to the level of their opponent. But even more than that, they will just have these stretches where they look like, frankly, an elite NFL team, and then these stretches where they look like just an abysmal team that doesn't know what they're doing, that doesn't look like they're coached very well, that doesn't have the talent to compete on the field. And I just published a piece over at the Athletic about one of the kind of contradictions of the Vikings, which is if you eliminated the last 2 minutes of each half, the Vikings would be 9-2-1. So for 56 minutes of a game, they are one of the top teams in the NFL. In fact, if you did that for every team, the Vikings would rank second just behind the Patriots. So it is wild how it is to watch the Vikings, because you watch these games. They're the only team in the NFL that's had a 6 point lead in every single game. You watch these games and you see how they can play well, when they've played well, what they look like when they're playing really well, their ability to hit explosive plays, create takeaways, their ability to sometimes even stop the run, which is one of their weaknesses. They've even had like some really great moments in that respect. And then kind of in the final 2 minutes, they turn into the 0-16 Lions and Browns. They turn into the 0-12 Buccaneers. They look like just a truly abysmal team.
For a neutral, and look, we'll talk about that Lions game in a way, but prefer neutral. I've actually enjoyed watching the Lions this season because you genuinely do not know what you're going to get, and that is what's keeping me going for this Thursday night game. But you said on your Norse Code podcast, and this tweet blew up. I did not expect this tweet to blow up, Colin, but obviously over here we've got the whole Mayo curse, something about a priest and a bus and the All Ireland, and they're not going to win the All Ireland until the last person. Well, the last person did, unfortunately, pass away recently, but
No.
I know. It happened, Colin, wasn't it just after the All Ireland? Wasn't it 2 weeks after?
Yeah, it was literally
Yeah.
just after the final where Mayo had once again lost.
To my county, but that's a different conversation. So it's all good. It's been a good year. But you said you feel if the Vikings hankered somebody, it would be in way funnier circumstances. Well, that was at the start of September, and it has been a hell of a season. I mean, are the Vikings cursed? I don't think they're cursed, but they're that team for me, Arif, in my 10, 12 years of watching this league, that they seem to get close and then they go back, and they're always around there, but there's so many variables going around.
Yeah, it's difficult because when you talk about a team with a curse, you always want a really good story to go with it, which is why I was like pretty critical of that Mayo story for a while. And then someone explained to me that actually the story is like way more interesting than the one I had read. I think it was on the BBC, which I guess that's not a huge shock, right? But the story was actually
Not
way
to
more.
Irish audiences, no.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so I've in the Norse code pantheon, we have re-awarded Mayo with the title of having a curse after having heard more of a full story. But yeah, the Vikings don't have that kind of story. I don't know who they ticked off. I mean, you could come up with a couple of stories historically that might have made sense. I mean, they did lose an NFL trophy, but it turns out actually they didn't, and the Packers just had kept it. And then after it was discovered in 2015, the curse wasn't lifted or anything like that. So that's not it. They angered the AFL when they initially decided to join the AFL before taking the NFL's offer. But every other team that's angered the AFL has won a Super Bowl, so that kind of doesn't matter. So there's not really a great curse story. So I wouldn't say that they're cursed, but I don't really know another word for it. Just like something about like their genetic memory as Vikings, they're just inept. I don't know. They cannot finish. And sometimes some leagues are just better with a team that is like that just punches people in the gut, and somebody has to take the burden. And for a while those like Liverpool fans, right? And here in Minnesota, it's the Vikings.
Yeah, certainly. When I talk to my in-laws, it's always just the heartbreak of being a Vikings fan, but also know a lot of people in Michigan. So it could be worse. It could be the factory of sadness that is the Lions. But I'm interested in Mike Zimmer because obviously a lot of talk this season, and it seems to vary depending on, we talk about it being a week-to-week league. Well, it certainly seems to be the case with Mike Zimmer. But what are your thoughts on Zimmer? Is it entirely dependent on this team making the playoffs that he's back next year?
I think basically, yeah. I think if they don't make the playoffs, he's out. I think that the nature of their losses has made it pretty easy to kind of pin a lot of the problems that the Vikings have had this year on Mike Zimmer. And so if the team and he can't overcome them, it's an indictment of his ability to kind of coach. I mean, he's fundamentally, I think he's a good coach. I think if the Vikings fire him and he wants to continue coaching football, he'll find a job as a head coach of an NFL team. But I think that given how disappointing this season has been, this would be the first time I think that the Vikings have gone under 500 2 years in a row in the Mike Zimmer era. That would, or miss the playoffs 2 years in a row in the Mike Zimmer era. That would be enough to say that the leash is kind of short now and that he has to go. I think that some of these losses in particular, especially that Lions loss, and if they lose to the Steelers tonight, I think those losses, I think, would kind of stick in the mind of the ownership when they make that decision. I don't know that they would make the decision, Friday morning or anything like that, but I do think that those two games, the one tonight and the Lions, would stick in their mind, coming up. But they still actually have the chance to make the playoffs. I think most of the analytics groups like 538 and Football Outsiders, they've got them between a 25 and 35% chance of making the playoffs, which would also be funny, and so it would be totally in keeping in line with the Vikings' history.
And that's the thing as well. I was actually driving home from work and I thought, how do I introduce this show tonight? Week 14. The reality is, you've got not just it's 5 games. There's a lot more to go in this season, and who knows what's going to happen. But for me, for fans over here in Ireland and the UK and Europe, and I know Colm's touched a bit on Zimmer there and the management, but what is the feeling like in Minneapolis now? Because I seen Vikings fans in Ireland and the UK last Sunday that were like, right, get Zimmer out now, he has to go now. But it really isn't over yet. It's not over till it's over, and there's still those 5 games left.
Yeah, I think part of it is just generally the conditioning you receive as a Vikings fan is to be pessimistic, just overall. And so the idea that they could still make the playoffs is a little bit absurd. And just not within the realm of possibility, given what we've seen recently. Part of it is, I think, a recency bias. The Vikings have looked pretty bad the past couple of games. And far enough removed, I think, from that really impressive Packers win for people to kind of dismiss the Vikings. But then also part of it is just the way the Vikings have played this year, which they have trained you not to hope for them, right? Because they get up in every single game. They've had a lead in every single game, and then they lose it. And then, more often than not, in the final 2 minutes, they'll end up creating a loss. And that trains a fan base not to have any particular hope, even if the way you lose a game has no relationship with how a season will go. Even if that's like not one-to-one, kind of the narrative structure is embedded in your head when you're watching the Vikings. Oh my gosh, this is interesting. I've seen this story before. They're going to screw it up. Oh, I was right. They screwed it up. That's just kind of the way it's been to watch a Vikings game this year. And so to think that the season would go any different, I think would kind of defy belief, I think, for a lot of Vikings fans. So to the larger question, kind of how have Vikings fans, responded to the season thus far? I think that, the ones that you've interacted with in the UK and in Ireland are representative of the ones that you interact with here in Minnesota. I think a lot of people are done with Mike Zimmer. They're done with Kirk Cousins. They're done with Rick Spielman, and they want to move on. They think that this season is over, and it's hard to like argue with that, right? Because it's a fundamentally emotional response that's grounded in a lot of reality. And so even if I bring up like, hey, the data says it's not over, no one's going to care, right? And so I think that a lot of people are fed up and they're done. And if they win out, right, if they win the rest of their games, which would include a pretty tough Rams opponent too, as well as the Packers in January, if they win out, people's minds will change. And I'm not going to, that's not a contradiction. That's not a hypocrisy. You're reacting to new information, and it would be totally justifiable for their minds to change. But that's what it would take.
We talked about the frustrations and possible curses, and we'll come back maybe to Kirk Cousins because I know you've written about him, but I maybe let's give Viking fans something. And I get so many things wrong on this show in terms of predictions, in terms of getting excited about certain players. But one of the things I'm proud of is I picked Justin Jefferson as soon as he entered the league. I said this guy is going to be a superstar, and so it has proved, at least to my eyes. But we've seen Devonta Adams come out over, I think, twice in the last month. He's gone out of his way to praise Jefferson. Can you talk about, as somebody who sees him regularly, just about like how good can he be? We've seen what in a year and a half what he can do, but as somebody who sees him regularly, can you talk to us a little bit about Jefferson?
Yeah, I think one thing that stands out about Jefferson is both how natural it is for him to do what he does, and also how unsatisfied he is with how good he is. And usually it's kind of one or the other, right? Where someone who is supernaturally talented is very comfortable with that fact and will, I wouldn't say coast on it, but will kind of live within those parameters and continue to succeed. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Or, there's somebody that will continue to kind of work hard. It takes them a while to break into becoming a big player. And once they do, they finally got a taste. They don't want to let go. So they'll continue to kind of, work at it. And sometimes the way that they play, you can kind of tell, it's a little bit labored. And I don't mean that necessarily as an insult, but it's very much deliberate in the way that they play. And for Jefferson, it's remarkable how much he changes his approach over the course of even just one season, but certainly over the course of these past two seasons, in the skills that he's gained and the ways that he's improved, the areas where he's identified that he's not been, that effective of a player, and finding ways to kind of shore up. And then also the fact that he is naturally quite a gifted receiver, both in terms of his physical capability and his instinct and intuition for how to play. And so I think combining those two things, really creates this enormous ceiling for him. His potential is functionally unlimited at that point. And he can do quite a bit. I mean, right now he's second, I think, in NFL history in 100-yard games in the player's first two seasons. He's going to have to get like three more in the next five to catch Odell Beckham, but otherwise, he's done a really just remarkable job of being consistent while being explosive at the same time. And he has added to his game in ways that I think that a lot of players don't. Like, he's a really effective deep ball receiver. I think that's something that, not a lot of people saw coming out of the draft for him, but it's been something that's been a really big part of his game. In the past, he struggled a little bit in the red zone, and he's improved there. He's still got some more room to improve there. But if you can imagine somebody like him who has the ability to generate 1,500 yards in a season, also adding on 10, 12 touchdowns in that same season, you can see how valuable a player like that could be.
Always go on mute. It always has to happen. I'm
Oh.
actually going to jump on the situation with Kirk Cousins. No, Colin mentioned it there now. Like, it's December the 9th, right? And it was November the 21st, that game against the Packers. Looking at the stats, looking where he's ranked, and then obviously the game against the 49ers, and then the game last week against the Lions. What are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins going forward for the rest of the season, but more so next year? Do you think he'll be in Minnesota come week 1 next September?
That's such a good question. I think if you don't have Zimmer and if you don't have Spielman, you probably don't have Kirk Cousins. I think keeping Zimmer and keeping Spielman means you're probably keeping Cousins because you're keeping those two people in your organization in order to kind of win in the short term because you know what they can do. And then Cousins would kind of be a continuation of that decision-making process and that goal. But if you want to rebuild, I mean, it's entirely possible that Cousins would be a really excellent bridge quarterback for the next quarterback, right? He could be, a much better, more consistent Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Somebody that has the ability to take over if a rookie is struggling without, necessarily challenging the security of that player, has the ability to start, has the ability to win on the whiteboard, has the ability to be an effective presence in the quarterback room and stuff like that, and win games for you at the same time. He can do that, but I think that at $45 million, which is his cap hit next year, that's not really what you're paying for. You're paying for somebody to win you a Super Bowl. And so that is kind of the demand that they'll have next year in terms of, do we have the capability to win the Super Bowl next year, or should we kind of prepare for the future? And if we prepare for the future, how do we work with this contract? And the contract could either be traded, which is entirely possible. There's a lot of teams that could be a quarterback away. If, for example, the Broncos don't have the ability to land Aaron Rodgers next year, which seems, less and less likely as time goes on, they might come calling for somebody like Kirk Cousins because the Broncos have a really remarkable team and a great rest of the roster. Or, if Trey Lance isn't working out in San Francisco, although that's kind of a long shot, it's possible that they could try to do a Jimmy Kirk swap, and then Jimmy could be a quarterback that trains your rookie next year. So it is difficult to try and figure out if Kirk will be here next year. I think that the nature of his contract makes it so difficult to move him and makes it difficult to do anything but extend him, that it's more likely that he stays here next year. But I don't know that if there's new coaching staff or a regime that would mean anything. Like, he might just hit free agency in 2023.
I appreciate your words about the Broncos having a remarkable team, but just being a QB away is something that us Broncos have been saying.
Yeah, I've heard that for, but they were, right. I mean, they won a Super Bowl when they were just a QB away. They got that quarterback. They won the Super Bowl after that quarterback had fallen off, but I mean, they got there.
Yeah, it's been an interesting QB ride, certainly in Denver. But I suppose one of the issues against the Vikings or against the Lions for the Vikings was that the Lions' ability to get to Cousins. And that's something that the Vikings have been pretty good about protecting him this year. We haven't seen him take too many sacks. But obviously they rejigged the line. I think there were three guys. In terms of tonight's game, what is it looking like, I suppose, both in terms of the O-line and injuries, and there was talk that Dalvin Cook may be active. Is that actually going to be the case?
Yeah, so some of these are going to be game time decisions. I think that one of the things that the what you're referencing in terms of the offensive line is that because Christian Darrisaw was hurt and it looks like he won't be able to play, tonight, because he was hurt, they needed a solution at left tackle. Often they would go to Rashad Hill, who's their backup tackle, but they didn't do that this time. They moved Oli Udoh, who's only ever played on the right side, both in college and in the NFL, to the left side to play left tackle. And then they had Garrett Bradbury come in at center and Mason Cole move out to guard, which meant, of course, that only Ezra Cleveland Brown and Neal were playing the positions that they had played at the beginning of the year. And that didn't work out very well. Charles Harris did a really great job getting to the quarterback against Oli Udoh. We saw a little bit of pressure come up the interior. For the most part, it was a pretty bad game for the Vikings offensive line. I think that will force them to kind of reevaluate. But the problem is, with a short week, you don't have a lot of time to figure out what you want your offensive line to look like. And so they might do the same thing. We won't find out probably until they turn in actives and inactives an hour and a half before the game. And so whether or not they'll stick with Oli Udoh at left tackle, I don't know. The good news is they do have a lot of experience with Rashad Hill at left tackle and the rest of the line looking like what it does. So they don't really have a ton of chemistry concerns if they just say, hey, Udo's been struggling all season, but it's clear he struggles more at left tackle than he does at right guard. Let's put him back at right guard. Let's bring Rashad Hill back up to tackle. This was in part a way to get Garrett Bradbury on the field because they feel that with both Mason Cole and Garrett Bradbury, they've got starting level interior players. I don't know if I agree with that, but that seems to be what they think. And if that's the case, I think that they wanted to bring some more interior talent on the field. And so if they do decide to go with Oli Udoh at left tackle, that I think is probably the reasoning. But I think there's every possibility that they move Udoh back and bring Rashad Hill over at left tackle.
I'm not going to insult your intelligence or ask you who you think is going to win tonight. Enjoy the game. But just finally, Arif, obviously, if you want to give your content a shout out, we're going to put a link on for The Athletic and your podcast and fantastic work there online in both on audio and video format as well. But who have you got winning it all in February? Because we're seeing all this slander this week, boys, about the Bucs against the Patriots. I mean, is there an outsider where you're looking at the minute going, they've got a shot, even in the AFC or NFC?
Yeah, well, if we're talking about outside shots, teams that won't be in the top 4 seeds of the AFC to the NFC. I think it's possible that we might be digging Matt Stafford's grave a little bit too early. I mean, the 3 pick sixes in 3 games, that's rough. I'm not going to deny that. But they have an outsized impact on our perception of a player versus what they consistently do from game to game to game. I think the Rams have been struggling in ways that are fixable, and they might be able to find ways to fix them to bring them to a Super Bowl. Now, Sean McVay is not great in second half of season adjustments or anything like that, so I'm totally willing to kind of eat it on that prediction. But I think in terms of outside shots, I think the Rams and then maybe the Cowboys are really good NFC representatives. AFC, anything's possible. A couple of weeks ago I said it was the Patriots, and now they're at the top of the chart, and so I can't pick them anymore. And I don't really know what to say. It's probably not the Titans. The Ravens and the Bills are probably too popular for me to pick as an outside shot. But yeah, I mean, the AFC, well, both conferences are very weird, but right now the AFC is just inscrutable. So really anything could happen there. If I was going to pick favorites, it'd probably be Packers, Patriots, which I would not love to see, but I think seems like the most likely solution right now.
Can you imagine for, I suppose, journalists and those covering if it does end up being a Bucs Patriots Super Bowl? I think the build up to that will almost be insufferable. But we shall see. Look, Arif, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us on the Irish NFL Show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Hope you enjoy the rest of the season. I hope to get back to Minneapolis in the not too distant future, but that invite to come and check out that picture right behind me is of Glendalough, one of the most beautiful places in Ireland. Cannot recommend it highly enough. So thanks for taking the time today, and look forward to welcoming you back to the Irish NFL Show at some point in the future.
Absolutely. When I head to Ireland, I'll let you know.
Please do.
Absolutely. And Colin, folks, was in Notre Dame a few weeks ago. Here is how he got on, not how it got on. See you guys in a second.
Delighted to be here on the University of Notre Dame campus, building up to today's game with Georgia Tech, and I am joined by former defensive tackle for Western Michigan, Corey Flom. Corey, how you doing?
Great. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, delighted to get the opportunity to talk to you. You played D1 college ball. We're about 2 hours from kickoff. What would it be like for the players right now?
Well, just kind of everybody just got off the bus, so you're getting in there, you're kind of getting your mind right, probably getting out, walking the field, kind of calm before the storm atmosphere, and then it's get your game face on, go get taped up, pads on, ready to go.
And I know one of your disappointments is you never got to play Notre Dame during your career playing college ball, but you played some big games. What's it like running onto the field with that atmosphere?
It's definitely an amazing experience. One you'll never forget. Played in some big games. If I was a year younger, I'd have played here. We played the year after. I was fortunate enough to come and watch, and we did not come away with the W. But experiences is something you can't miss out on.
And if I was to ask you for a pick on today's game, Notre Dame or Georgia Tech?
You got to go with the hometown heroes, Notre Dame.
Thanks very much, Corey. Appreciate you joining me today.
Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And for the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our state revolver. Ladies and gentlemen,
Too easy for Notre Dame today. Impressive performance for them. Disappointing from Georgia Tech.
Looks like the game's over in the first quarter. I wouldn't count Georgia Tech out, but it's a long way up from here.
I would say it's a long way back. I mean, Notre Dame just getting pressure defensively. Offense looking better on special teams. Just winning on all three phases of the game.
Yeah. Georgia Tech's definitely getting worked on the interior. The offensive line hasn't really shown up much. Notre Dame's winning the upfront battle, which is a tough day for anybody.
I think you were enjoying the D-line play of Notre Dame and what they were doing to Georgia Tech center.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome in. We're back live here now. Delighted to be joined by Colin, by Brian. Been a long day. And Mark. How are we doing, boys? Good?
Good, yeah.
I'm loving that. I assume it's a Christmas decoration column, yeah?
Yeah. Trying to be a bit festive.
Yeah.
Whereas I've gone.
The Harris Junior jersey really is quite a festive treat, I have to say.
Yeah. It was he tended to come alive in December and January when he played at Mile High.
Our guest has disappeared. I think he's coming back, but until then.
Oh, great! So we get to talk about Monday Night Football. Brilliant.
No, we don't.
Absolutely.
Oh, here he is. Okay, delighted to welcome him because we're gone for about 20 minutes. He is the host of the morning show 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. We're going to talk some Steelers. Welcome in to Colin Dunlap. Colin, very welcome to the Irish NFL show. Your debut on the show. Welcome in. Your audio is not working.
There we go.
Is that
better?
Thank God, Colin. Thank God.
Right.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
All good.
Doing good. Obviously, Thursday night football. I was about to say Monday night football there. Mark's put me in a bad mood after that Patriots game. But
Yeah.
big night for the Steelers, Colin. Before we talk about that there, can you tell us maybe a wee bit about yourself? Have you ever been to Ireland? Obviously, Pittsburgh played in Dublin in '97. Obviously, a strong affinity to Ireland. Have you ever been over?
I have, but not necessarily sports related. Just to travel, yeah. And judging by my first and my surname, I think you guys can tell that there's a bit of lineage there. But not now. We can't come over. It's a little bit of a different time, I guess. But Yeah, I much enjoyed it. And I think, obviously with the link to the Rooneys and the heavy sort of Irish Catholic contingent here in Pittsburgh, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of Irish people here in Pittsburgh, at least Irish Americans. And the link to the Rooneys, I mean, it's phenomenal in the way that these, with how the late ambassador was and everything, the link to the organization and the country.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate to talk to one of the Rooneys and to Kevin Colbert. But I think this is an interesting one, Colin. The Steelers sit 6-5-1. We have seen the good and the bad. Obviously, the loss to Cincy. Mike Tomlin says they need to do a bit of soul searching and look in the mirror. And then you come back against the most hated rivals and get a victory. Just who are the 2021 Steelers?
Why don't you tell me? Because no one here can figure it out, right? I don't know. I don't know. I will say this. I think they're a team that needs to win tonight or it's over. Because if you look at the proposition in front of them, they have 5 football games left. And I think they need to get to 9 wins. So that's 3 wins. If they lose tonight, does anybody who I'm talking to think they're going to win 3 of 4? I don't think so. So if they win tonight, that just leaves 2 of 4. That's doable, right? You could split. You could go 500 in the last 2 games. Tonight, it's a team that has yet to establish an identity, but it is a team that I don't think is all that uncommon throughout the league this year, as there's so much parity, and teams are still looking, even though we're into December now, to trying to find out what they are. So even though they haven't established an identity and we don't know what they are, it's not a year where you have a few teams already, with 12 or 13 wins and they're running away with it. It seems like there are a lot of teams in that boat, guys.
Colin, during the summer, we were fortunate to have one of the Rooney family on the show based in Dublin at the time he was over here traveling. And he suggested potentially a wildcard spot for this team. And we weren't sure. What were your expectations going into the season? Are they where you expected them to be?
Pretty much. I said that they'd be a 9-8 football team. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but the 17 games has screwed up my math all season, trying to figure it out. But leave it to Mike Tomlin to leave the window open and perhaps have a 500 season when it's almost a mathematical impossibility. And he could perhaps do it this season at 8-1. I expected them to be 9-8. I expected them to be around a 500 team, right around there. And wouldn't you know it, here we are, which is why I find a lot of the haggling, why I find a lot of the belly aching to kind of go out the window. Because if we revert back to August, guys, so many people said, well, they're going to win one, they're going to lose one, they're going to win one, they're going to lose one. They'll be about an 8 or 9 win team. And it's trending toward them being an 8 or 9 win team. So aren't we right where we thought we would be?
Yeah, Colin, the tie is just perfection in terms of the balancing and the rebalancing for us all. And as you say, making the 500 would almost be poetic in its nature.
Yes.
Colin, the defense of the Steelers this season at times has resembled an episode of MASH. You've had some of your key players out at various times. And on offense, everybody wants to talk about Big Ben and the will he, won't he. I was referring to him, alluding to him in terms of Brett Favre the other week on our show, in the kind of like, you want me, come take me back, call for me, ask me. But in fact, the most fascinating thing for me about this Steelers team isn't the defense. It isn't even Big Ben. It isn't even your wide receivers who can be dropsy at times, both Johnson and Claypool. It's actually the fact that Mike Tomlin, as great of a coach he is, year in, year out, seems to go in with an offensive line made up of sticky back plaster and, a bandage wrapped around them. Because it's not just this season, it's the last few seasons. They've been pretty bad. And, what's Najee Harris supposed to do? What's Big Ben supposed to do behind that line?
Well, that's a very fair point. And the way I look at it is, from a technical football sense, I don't know how much they can do, but I do think this. If you have a mobile quarterback and you have a guy that can move and you have a guy that can throw on the run, you can't negate that, but you can minimize the impacts of a bad offensive line. We don't see Ben Roethlisberger get outside the tackle box. We don't see him bootleg. We don't see him get out and run. Again, you can't fully negate that. but a better quarterback, not a better quarterback, a quarterback that works in that system more and rolls the pocket and moves the pocket and throws on the run, not a running quarterback. Those are two different things. Can help negate that. It's almost like if you can't beat them, join them. They can't figure it out and fix it. You have to figure out a workaround, which would be a quarterback that can move some. Like I've been a proponent all year of, I didn't think Ben should have come back this year. I think he holds them back from an organization sense. I don't think they're able to move forward. And into next year, in Mason Rudolph, I don't think he's the guy. I've been a long proponent this year of a guy like Marcus Mariota next year. Bring him in for 1 year, let him play quarterback, let him move around some. Then you figure out what you got in him, and or you draft somebody next year, not this coming draft, next year. You do that. Or, you have a guy like Matt Ryan. He's not a running quarterback, but he can throw on the move a little bit. He can move right and left and throw on his feet. Ben Roethlisberger, he plays into their weaknesses, and that's not good.
Colin, 6-5-1 going into week 14, Thursday Night Football tonight. You mentioned there about the schedule. Obviously, Vikings tonight, Steelers, Titans next, Chiefs, Browns, Ravens. Hell of a last 5 games, or hell of a last 4 games to take tonight out of it. The only positive you can really take from it as a Steelers fan or somebody in Pittsburgh is you get a 10-day rest after tonight. Get over the hump. It's almost like a mini bye week. Take a few days off for Big Ben, maybe heal, but that is still a very tough just end of the season.
Something from an atmospherical sense, or as Mike Tomlin would say, globally speaking, I guess, even though it's really just indigenous to North America. But something that bothers me about these Thursday night games are, you get this in December especially, guys, and you heard it this week from some of the Steelers players. Oh, Thursday night football. They don't care about our safety. Oh, Thursday night football. All they want to do is make money, the NFL. Thursday night, it's greed and we're unhealthy. Well, okay, tell us that on a Tuesday in December, but you guys have a collective bargaining agreement. When you hammered out your new contract, why didn't you bring it up then? Why didn't you say it then? It's okay to gripe and bellyache and complain and have qualms about right now. You sat at a negotiation table and you could have said, hey, we ain't playing on Thursday night, or we're not playing football. The money's good enough whenever it's time to hammer out a CBA, but then you squawk about it. I'm tired of hearing it from the players. I think it is all about greed. I think it is all about the NFL making money. But that being said, you're a party to it if you oblige them.
Colin, from this position as a neutral in terms of the Steelers, and from 5,000 miles away, Mike Tomlin and his press conferences are absolutely box office. Obviously, a guy who's never had a losing season. This year, he's had possibly more to talk about than ever with the links to college football and all that nonsense. As somebody on the ground covering the team, can you talk to us a little bit about Tomlin?
I think he's brilliant, and I think he's incredibly intelligent, and I don't think that anything is contrived. I feel like now I don't know if he sits around his dinner table and he was like, "Could you please pass me the salt with which I'll apply to my dinner?" Like, I don't think he talks like that in real life, but I think he goes into football mode when he's in that football facility, and that's the way that he is. I will say he doesn't suffer fools well, which I like. I don't either. I don't have time for people who are knuckleheads. But also, I don't feel as if – I think he thinks before he speaks every word, and you're not going to get cliches out of him. You know that there's real thought. I mean, so I enjoy it. I really do. I think he's an – and if nothing else, I think he's a very honest man. I truly do.
Colin, I suppose this game tonight is, in terms of a wild card game, potentially a wild card opportunity for Steelers. A lot to do with the fact that the division is so open this season. What have you made of the inconsistency of the other teams? A lot of people felt this would be the year the Browns would push on. Hasn't come to pass.
Well, Baker Mayfield sucks, so there's that. I've been saying it all season, Colin. Right. Okay, Baker Mayfield's the kind of guy. If you can show me one time when he's made a throw of consequence, when he's had to make a throw of consequence, show me the tape. He can keep you in games. He can, earlier in the season, the big up and down game that they played with the Chargers. Okay, 37-37 or whatever it was. Then he needed to make a throw and he couldn't make it. He can get you right there to the edge, but he can't get you into the water. He can't do it. So there's that. You don't know what you're getting with Lamar Jackson. I think that Lamar Jackson, if you really look at the pace that he's on, both from a season standpoint and a career standpoint, he just simply gets hit too much. You can't allow your quarterback to have that many blows, to get hit that much. And I think Burrow is, from a talent standpoint, the best quarterback in the division. I think that Chase is just unbelievable, but they haven't had time to gel as an offensive unit. And their defense is good at times, but I think that they're a bit inconsistent as well. I don't know if Cincinnati is ready to win. If you know what I mean, if they know in close, if they believe, I think when Cincinnati gets into close games still at this point, it's almost like, let's hope we win, as opposed to an expectation of winning football games. And they've got to learn that over time. But Baker Mayfield sucks.
Yeah, he's no discount double check, but does a good pitch man for Progressive, doesn't he? His ad work is about the best.
Well, he never gets away from work. He lives at the stadium. You know?
That's it.
Yeah.
Colin, there are 3 movies in Oscar history that have won the the top 5 awards, like Best Film, Best Director, Best Actor, Actress, and Best Screenplay. They can adequately describe much of the Pittsburgh Steelers season. One was called It Happened One Night back in the 1930s, which you might look back on the Ravens game in that regard. One is The Silence of the Lambs, still the only horror movie to have won the Best Film Oscar. And whether the Lions tie or the Bengals lost, there's certainly been a bit of horror in the season.
Yeah.
And the other, of course, is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And if anything summed up dissociative personality disorder, it is either the Pittsburgh Steelers or indeed the Minnesota Vikings. So a Thursday night game between the Steelers and the Vikings is just the craziest thing that could probably happen in this craziest season of all. Can you help us, please, for Thursday Night Football, try and make sense of the matchup we're going to face tonight?
I can. And I'll tell you, I think there's one big thing that not a lot of people are talking about. If the Steelers score first, Minnesota's home crowd, although it's been billed as loud, I've been in that stadium, it's raucous, it can be pandemonium in there. They are seething because of the loss to Detroit. If the Steelers score first, they are after Zimmer. They are going to boo this guy off the field. They are going to turn on this guy. They are going to, because they want him out. That's all the talk out of Minneapolis. You guys see the websites just as I do, and the papers just as they have the torches and the pitchforks, and they are ready to get him. I think if the Steelers can get up and just score first, that crowd will turn on their home team, and that'll be a gigantic story. It'll be because they want him fired right now. If they get behind in this football game, they're going to want him fired at halftime. I feel that way. I mean, these are two teams. Keep this in mind. This is the battle of the two teams that couldn't beat the frickin' Lions.
Well, I mean, just random stat if I can, Michael. I think the Lions game was the first game that the Vikings weren't up by at least 7 points in this entire season. And look at their record. So who knows what they're coming out with.
Yeah. And like that's the thing as well. And like looking at the Lions, Colin, like, you know, the Lions, sorry, not the Lions, the Vikings. Thank God the Lions aren't playing tonight. Jesus, if the Lions are playing tonight, there wouldn't even be a show. That was a joke. The Lions are great. Congratulations last week. The Vikings, 3 weeks ago, they beat the Packers, Colin, right? So, you know, for me, if I'm Pittsburgh, like that high after Sunday, after Baltimore not getting the 2 points, it's a perfect time to play them. But, I mean, do you rate Kirk Cousins to the point of you think he could take this team over the line tonight and get 20 or 30 points against Pittsburgh after Pittsburgh have left the last 2 or 3 games? They've held Baltimore on Sunday to a certain amount of points. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I don't. And I think that's why they're playing Cook, who is hurt. I think they're panicked and they're playing Cook and he's not ready to play, but they feel like they have to play him. Thielen's out, and so he can't play. And so they've rushed Cook back in this because they don't believe in their quarterback. I mean, where do you rate him? Do you honestly think that he's a top 20 quarterback on the planet?
Middle of the road.
Right. Yeah. I think that because they don't trust him, that's a lot of the reason why Cook's arm may fall off. The middle of his chest, there may be a big protrusion or hole in it. I don't know which one, but they said you got to play tonight because this guy can't beat anybody. He's not going to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think, with his skill set. And he's scared to death that T.J. Watt is going to put him in an ambulance.
He's Kerry Collins for the 21st century. That's right.
There you go.
Colin, I think the only way this would be more entertaining is if we were to do it with a few pints in a pub. But I'm gonna ask for your prediction for a score for tonight's game.
Certainly. Steelers 21-19. And I think that Boswell makes a field goal at the end to win this football game. It's indoors, so he won't be affected by the wind, hopefully not the weather. I don't think it'll be a blowout either way. I think it'll be one of those games that you kind of kick yourself. You stayed up all night to watch because it'll be ugly. It won't be very entertaining. But the Steelers will find a way to win. I think like 21-19. And I understand ugly. You guys, I know a couple guys who have played in the very high level soccer. I'm friends with them. And you'll never believe the team that I pull for. You'll never guess it in the world. I'm a big
Peterborough.
QPR.
QPR.
Yes. So I know about ups and downs. I know about hating the management. I know about spending too much money. I know about having the thrill of victory ripped right out from you. So I've lived that in my life. And I know about being somebody's like little brother for the most part. That's not the Steelers, but that's my soccer side. So,
well, Colin, you've been a great guest. I'll put it like this: if the Steelers make the playoffs, you're back on the show, please God. And if QPR make the championship playoffs, we'll certainly have you back on. Come May as well.
Big shout out to my Irish buddies. I know that Gallen brothers, Stevie and Joe Gallen, and Kevin Gallen, who are all QPR men they're good friends of mine through some friends that I have here in America, and they're gigantic. They're big, great Irishmen, and they'll drink a pint with you anytime. That is for sure. But you're on if the Steelers make the playoffs, but they have to win tonight. If they don't make the playoffs, or if they don't win tonight, forget it. No playoffs.
You gotta take that Ted Lasso spirit tonight, Colin, and believe, man. Yeah, believe. Into it.
Well, believe in this hand and do something else in this hand and see which one gets filled first.
Colin Dunlap at Colin_Dunlap. Recommend anybody Ireland, UK, Europe, NFL fans give Colin the follow. But Colin, you're welcome on any time, man. Hopefully we can share a pint in Pittsburgh someday, and really appreciate you coming on before the game. Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you so much. See you guys.
Cheers, Colin.
Thanks.
What a great guy. That was a good crack.
It makes you want to root for the Steelers, doesn't it?
Almost makes you want to root for a QPR. Jesus.
No. We will see the pick tonight.
Never too far.
No, let's not go too far.
I don't mind QPR.
Scored his first goal against QPR. Do you remember John Jensen?
I still remember 2012 when Joey Barton got sent off at the Etihad. So no.
I met Joey Barton the year after. I'll put the picture up later on. And Guillaume Balaguer in Belfast. There's your random stat of the night.
I remember Trevor Sinclair scoring a goal of the season overhead bicycle kick for QPR many moons ago.
I'll give you a story. I'll give you a story away from NFL. Do you remember in '95 when the trouble at Lansdowne Road with the Ireland and England?
Don't remember about that, Brian. Don't know what you're talking about.
No. I have a story for it. Do you remember the young child that was on the pitch that got all the exposure and got all the free trips to the UK?
Yes.
Yeah, he's my cousin, right? And his father, who was with him, is a QPR fan. And Man United brought him and his father over to the game, and it was Man United QPR in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup. Dennis Irwin scored. QPR didn't win that day. I think Lee Sharp got the first as well. Michael, you were 4 years of age, I think. Was it? 3? Yeah, 4. Yeah, you were 4, yeah.
And then the game was at Windsor the year after, wasn't it? The World Cup qualifier, or was that the year before that? No,
That was
I don't.
before that.
That was
before.
93. McLaughlin.
Yeah.
93. I was 2 years of age. I don't remember. Fred float. Now Colin's gone. I can say that. Big Ben is slower than a wet weekend in a slippery rocky nursery. That is atrocious. That is atrocious. That comment, but I think even he knows it as well. Big game for the Cowboys of the weekend. It's on Sky. The Cowboys are on Sky this weekend, boys.
It's a
There you
big
go.
game, in fairness. It's a big
It's
game.
anything
It is a
that
big game.
matters
It's
in
a
that
big
slot,
game.
really.
Washington,
I
Dallas.
agree. You got to bear in mind, for all the grief that the NFC East gets, there could be two of the teams in the playoffs.
Very big game. And Mike McCarthy has guaranteed a win.
Yeah.
Doomed. They're doomed.
Yeah. Nearly as bad as when he took out the hairy lemon last year and started smashing them up the night before the Vikings. Yeah.
So
They are getting a lot of
Michael,
players. They are getting a lot of players back on defense this weekend. I can understand why he's very confident.
But Michael, one team is on a bye this weekend.
Micah Parsons was limited today. And
Okay.
apparently Pollard's a game time decision.
Yeah, there's an update from Rapp in the past hour on Pollard. I haven't got around. Anyway, we'll keep that. Save that for the weekend.
Well,
Show.
I have a little announcement to make. We are not announcing a deal with FanDuel like Pat McAfee, but maybe in the future. I want to congratulate him. $30 million he does a year, and well done. That could be us someday, boys. Who knows? We could be doing it for the crack. But I was going to say something, and it's in my head here now, and it's completely gone. Yes, my new technique is not working for these late games. I'm now recording the games and getting up early to watch them before I go to work, and not going great so far. Not going great so far. Thank God I didn't watch that on Monday night.
Michael, you just need to get yourself one of these little alarm clock things that helps get you up really early, and then you catch up with the game early. It's called a child, and generally they do the job for you. And then you,
Michael, that technique you started.
While Daddy watches the NFL, or vice versa.
That technique that you've been using over the past fortnight has been saving me all season. That's how I do it every week. So I get the opportunity to watch the entirety of the game before my kids make an appearance in the morning.
Gents, I know we've got a busy show, but are we not going to talk about Monday Night Football? Are you sure we're not going to talk about
we're
Monday
not.
Night Football?
We're not going to talk about Monday Night Football. There's nothing to talk about.
There is lots to talk about.
I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it.
Can I say one thing, and then I'm going to go and try and get this next guest on? The Bills are going to be the Bills. Well done to the Patriots defense, and it is what it is. I actually think, and I haven't seen this on Twitter, but I know for a fact there's actually a tour, and a shout out to everybody on that tour at the minute over at that game. Neil Reynolds on it as well. There was no images. I was dying to see like a video or a picture of all them boys. Like that weather looked like
you got to give
atrocious.
The Bills fan. You got to give any fan, whether they're Bills or Patriots, to brave the elements on Monday night. But I'm going to make a quick one for this weekend. The Patriots don't play this weekend. A couple of weeks ago, Colin said, the Bucs are celebrating again. They didn't play this weekend, and all the results went their way. Well, come Monday morning, I'm going to put it out there now. The Patriots will be celebrating potentially that division because the Bucs are going to beat the Bills on Sunday. From Monday in the cold to playing in Florida at the weekend. I say by the fourth quarter they're going to be gassed, and Tom Brady's going to put points upon that team, and then Mark will be happy on Monday morning with this.
Tom Brady with his 32-3 record against the Bills as well.
I think it's 38-2. That's what I read since even. 38-2.
It's 32.
He's going 32. For the ultimate Irish stat, 33-3.
Okay.
Would be perfect.
Mark, I'm sorry, Mark. Did you not get a chance to talk about your AFC champions yet?
Oh no, I don't. I mean, look, we're just quietly in the corner, just having a 7-game win streak and being number one seed in the AFC at the moment at 9-4.
And the Dolphins are 1-5.
With that, Michael. Don't need to dwell on the game. It's okay. We're just quite happy. I will say one thing. Dante Scarnacchia on Boston radio this week, obviously the long-term Patriots O-line coach, a legend in his own right, kind of referred to it as a dream game because he said the O-line didn't have to worry about pass protecting. They didn't have to worry about picking up pass blitzes. They knew every single play. They could just go out there and hit someone hard and try and drive them backwards. And I just thought, yeah, that's pretty much the O-line enjoyed every minute of it. Even both sides, like the O-lines had fun. Davin Godchaux is the name that should be reflected. Fantastic play during that game.
They had one run. Like, we have both watched this game. They had one run. And they'd done SFA, sweet F all the rest of the game. Fair play to them. Like, but these people saying, "Oh, it's going to be great seeing a Bucks and Patriots." Get out of here, boys.
Michael.
Come
Nobody's
on.
talking about that. But the Bills would not have had one touchdown.
Everybody saw it's all over social media this week.
Michael, no one gave on this show the slander against Mac Jones before this season started was ridiculous. The slander against the Patriots was crazy. The fact that they're sitting where they are, and I don't think they're going to a Super Bowl, but the fact they're sitting where they are is a pretty solid testament. And we can't, as a Broncos fan, we once had a game where Tim Tebow threw 2 passes. I think, glass houses and whatnot.
I just say, in fairness, was Marcus Crone on the division? I don't think Mark saw this coming, to be honest, because if you recap a show about 4 or 5 weeks ago, he was even making points. I could see a scenario where we might win 9 games this season. I think that's what Mark said at the time. But look, fair play to him to come with the run. Monday's game is a game on its own because the conditions were so bad. It's hard to take away anything from that game form-wise. I don't think the Bills are walking away from that game saying, "Oh, we're really concerned because of certain." Schemes, or it's just one of those games. They had their opportunity, didn't take them, and I don't think the Patriots would have walked away saying we were convincing in a win. When they play each other in Foxborough, if the conditions are back to normal, I think we'll see a very different game. And I'm not saying the result will be different, but the way the game will play out will be very different.
And Brian, you're right. I thought the Pats were going to be a wild card team this year. I didn't think they'd take the division. I still thought the Bills would take the division. And they do still have the Colts next and then the Bills. So there's every possibility the Pats still have 2 very tough games ahead. But I just love the incongruity of it all is that Bill Belichick just kind of goes, yeah, do you know what? We're just not going to bother. We're just going to run it every single play. And they controlled enough of the clock and they got enough momentum.
Mark, you're leaving out, he wore a Navy face mask before he ran the ball 46 times. If Bill Belichick doesn't enjoy trolling people, and Brian, you're saying in some ways, that you can't take a whole lot, but as you said, it's a big game for the Bills at the weekend, and it's up to the Bills to show that their line isn't going to be bullied. Because one of the issues that they've had against the Colts and against the Patriots is that they're getting bullied. Now they are up against it at the weekend. They need to show that they can't be bullied, because if 3 teams are able to bully them, that's a huge concern.
That game against the Colts is on Saturday night next week, and we should have a special show for those Saturday games. Who knows what's going to happen? Our guest is coming up in 30 seconds. I had something to say about that, and now I don't. Not about the guest, but about the Patriots. I'm having a bad week, boys. I think Bill Belichick just annoyed me on Monday to the point where I'm just not.
Bill Belichick was quite emotional at the end of it. Not emotional, probably. He doesn't tend to over-celebrate on the sideline at the end of games, but he certainly did on that one. I think he recognized...
He's mellowing up in his older age.
I think he recognized the significance of winning that game, and if they were to take care of business, in the second round of the games when they played here, then essentially they've got the division, and right now they're in the number one seed. I'm not sure if they're going to maintain that number 1 seed. I think there's other teams coming down the line that will probably pip them in the end.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, we talked about last week briefly, like the run-in for all of those teams that are in the mix. The Titans probably have the easiest run-in, but they've got the least amount of weapons. The Ravens have a tricky enough one. The Chiefs, I know the boys think it's a tougher run-in, but the Chiefs are on a bit of a roll and they might end up backing into it. It's going to be a fascinating run at the top and at the bottom as to who picks up the last couple of wildcard slots as well.
Okay. Let's leave it there. One thing I did see today on Twitter, I don't want to go off it because I know there are Cowboys fans watching this. As it stands, the Cowboys would have to play the Bucks, the Packers, and somebody else to get to the Super Bowl. I read it and laughed. So if I'm sitting number 1 AFC and I've got a quarterback that went 19 yards and I handed it off and run, I'd be delighted because it's a free pass as it stands at the minute. But we'll talk about it next time. We've got a special guest tonight. We are delighted, boys, to bring on a man from Skerries in County Dublin who is in Atlanta, Georgia. He wrote a fantastic article for us last summer. He contributes regularly just for the show now. A great article last week as well. He has his own website, Irishman in Football. Delighted to welcome in Andrew McGuinness into the Irish NFL show. Andrew, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks, Michael. It's good to be here, boys.
And it's great to put a face to the name, Andrew. Obviously, great to see your content on our website. Can you maybe tell us a bit about yourself and your background with the game?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, as you very kindly said in the intro, I grew up in Skerries, County Dublin. Sports mad family. Mum was a gymnastics coach. Dad was rugby coach. Was coaching Skerries in the AIL in the 90s. So got to travel over as a sports mad fan. But yeah, just going back to NFL and how I got into it. When I used to go to pick up shoes on a Saturday morning as a soccer fan, I'd always pick up Sports Illustrated Europe if it was available, or the NFL kind of fanzine magazine as well. So it started from there. I have to say, at the time I was a Dan Marino and Dolphins fan, and when Channel 4 had the game, I would really relish watching it every weekend. And then I didn't have when Channel 4 lost the rights, I didn't have. I wasn't in a household where their cable existed, so I had to kind of forgo the NFL for a number of years. But spent a J1 summer in Boston in 2002 and had enough Packers fans I was working with at the time to get back into it as a fan, and just love watching the games, and the history of the game is very important to me as well. So the role of the blog is to really focus on those kind of stories and issues behind the game, whether it's the social issues that affect it, the rise and at times the dominance of women in the journalism side of the game as well. I think there's just a lot of color, and those kind of different stories, bringing them to light is what I enjoy doing on the blog, and obviously covering the NFC South for you guys as well.
Yeah, Andrew, it's always interesting to hear, I suppose, how people on this side of the Atlantic ended up getting into the NFL. And you've outlined, I suppose, some of the ways in which the game has developed. What of the 2021 season thus far, as we enter week 14, what have been some of the stories that have maybe caught your eye this year?
Well, I think probably as like overarching themes go, the fact that the best teams in the land are probably going to be 11-5 as we get to like the close of the season, and how competitive the league is. That stands out to me. That you probably have a lot of expectations around teams like the Bills. People thought they were going to own the AFC East, and that just hasn't been the case. So I think going back to kind of brass tacks, like the teams that really dominated over the last season or two, the Bucks and definitely the Chiefs seem to be coming into their own this time of year. And we all know the old Belichick maxim about football doesn't count until it's after Thanksgiving as well. So the Patriots are on a serious run. So I really don't think anyone saw that coming. And I think as well, like I love the stories around the comeback stories around the Bengals. Like I just think there's something like ridiculous. It kind of encapsulates the season, the topsy-turvy nature of it, that every team is beatable on any given Sunday. That they've come back and they look like they have a great offense, but they also have some really good, and Henderson Rodas, they have some really good defensive parts as well. And I think like as wild cards for the AFC to keep an eye on, I would have them, and I would have the Chargers up there as teams that I wouldn't fancy facing on wildcard weekend come January. So yeah, like a lot of change. As every year we're kind of proven wrong, or we have our assumptions going into the season, and with the Patriots and several other instances, there's always an example of where like we just don't know until we see what's in front of us.
Andrew, some of the articles that you've put together on the website are very insightful, but the one I really enjoyed the most was the Aaron Rodgers piece. If you want to just, certainly from Packers fans this side of the world, you want to speak about that one as a Packers fan? I'm sure it was interesting to put that together. And I suppose it was all around the time of the vaccination story.
That's right. Yeah. I think, the rationale was not to be provocative. It was more, I was probably coming to this place with Rodgers, and I think a lot of fans who have revered his style of game, like I think he's one of the most talented players maybe to ever play the game. And certainly in Packers folklore, he has like he's up in the upper echelons. But I also think that some of his carry on, which I've seen like I used to live in Seattle before I moved to Atlanta, where I live now, and I remember the day of the NFC Championship game when the Falcons whopped the Packers back in 2017, the New York Times had a big story on what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers, and it was about the breakdown of his relations with his family. So he's the dual narratives are there. It's like he's quite a complicated guy off the field. He's also very esoteric and brilliant as well, as that press conference kind of epitomized. So the article was really getting to grips with his views on the vaccine. He talked about misinformation, and the Wall Street Journal had got the story about his COVID toe wrong, and then he had the wherewithal to really call out a female journalist who didn't write the piece, who might have retweeted the Wall Street Journal piece. But again, he talked about misinformation and he kind of went after her. So I kind of latched on to that. And I made a comparison with Nick Rolovich, who was the head coach in Washington State, who was the highest paid employee in the state of Washington. And he made it a very personal pilgrimage for him not to get the vaccine and to kind of play brinkmanship with the team. And I kind of juxtaposed the two, but also talked about the kind of interweaving narratives. And I think if Packers fans are ready for him to win a Super Bowl and exit stage left.
Andrew, I can't help but comment on the fact that I know you cover college football as well as the NFL, and obviously there's been a great carousel of moves in the college football coaching scheme at the moment. And thinking back, it's rare that an NFL coach leaves an NFL job to go back to college. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh was out of a job when he went back to Michigan, but really Nick Saban, maybe, when his ill-fated 1-15 Miami Dolphins tenure, is probably the last time that someone actively left and joined the NFL of college football in Alabama there, of course. But I saw a fascinating article by Bill Barnwell on ESPN today, where he was juxtaposing the idea that with the ridiculous amounts of money now being thrown around, triggered by Lincoln Riley's move, the idea that, an NFL head coach, or indeed a really talented offensive coordinator like Kellen Moore, for example, the Cowboys, could be lured across and away from the NFL to a college head coaching gig as a preference, and that an NFL head coach might not then be the pinnacle of their coaching career. I mean, just in all of the shenanigans going on the last couple of weeks, what's your take and viewpoint on that possibility?
Well, certainly the purchase power of the top head coaching jobs in college football is in itself enough to sway. I think a lot of top assistants, or even maybe even it's not just a young NFL head coach. It could be someone in a bit more mid-tier. I know Mike Tomlin went out of his way to scotch those rumors, and I think that was pretty kind of pie in the sky about whether he'd be tempted going to USC before Lincoln Riley said yes to the role. But I do think there's a lot of, with the kind of with how NFL cherry picks a lot of its ideas from in the offensive side of football from college. I think there's a lot of overlap with assistants, and like we've just seen that Joe Brady was let go by the Carolina Panthers in the last week, and their head coach has come. Matt Rule came from college. The interesting thing about Matt Rule that a lot of college football media who met him will maintain that he is the most normal and sane of the college head coaches they've come across. He can talk about art, he can talk about cinema, he's interested in food, he's by all accounts like an all-around very good guy. So like there's the allure is there. I mean, let's see what happens with that. Oregon is probably the last kind of big head coaching job to fall. Joe Brady is probably like an outside candidate for that, but I could see him coming back and taking an assistant role. And I also think that, for all the long hours that go into being a top head coach, I think if you compare it with the pressure of the NFL and the strain a lot of these guys are under, a lot of those roles, even though you're going to work maybe as hard, but the pressure maybe is not there. And there is something about landing a plum kind of head coaching role or a top offensive coordinator role at a college or a school that might be preferable to the day-to-day of the NFL. But yeah, look forward to seeing that trend continue, because I think there's a lot to that.
It's obviously been an interesting few weeks in college football as well, with a selection show last weekend in Cincinnati getting into the top 4 and breaking that glass ceiling. But obviously, Brian Kelly getting that major job down at LSU. I'm trying to get into it, Andrew, but to be honest with you, when you engross yourself in the NFL on a Sunday, there's only so much sport that your wife will take on a Saturday, so it's very difficult to watch something. And then you're getting up, maybe it's midnight Saturday night. You're like, oh, I'll watch the Clemson Ohio State game. I'm trying, and obviously it's great to see games over here next year. Staying though on the NFL this season, Andrew. Looking at obviously we're about to make our picks after you go off the show now in a bit for this game tonight. The Steelers against the Vikings. Just wondering maybe what your thoughts are tonight on both those teams, and have you got maybe a preferred favorite for the game tonight?
Well, the way things are going, I think that like the Vikings have talent, but they're like the most unbelievably frustrating team. And I mean, maybe not from a Packers fan's point of view, but certainly their ability to get into close games and play well and lose is kind of second to none. I think if I was in charge, if Rick Spielman is looking around, I think there might be time for Zimmer to be on the chopping block. And then with the Steelers, I would tip the Steelers on the basis of they had a good win at the weekend. They're an unbelievably limited team, but there's a lot of goods. I think they're well coached and they have a decent defense. And Harris is a good player. Roethlisberger probably is in his last season. I think probably they're the better team. But I feel it's the stories about like internal rancor in the Vikings locker room are starting to kind of come out, and I just think a lot of it is probably maybe inertia and fatigue with who the head coach is, and I think he's had ample opportunity to make them a consistent playoff team and maybe kick on and be consistent about winning or vying with the Packers in the North, and he hasn't done it. So Zimmer for me is coaching on borrowed time.
Andrew, I suppose having heard your thoughts about Rodgers, and we're talking a little bit about Zimmer there, I'm interested, I suppose, about and we were talking about college, but when you look at, say, the Texans or the Jaguars, and you have these multi-billion-dollar franchises which have probably doubled in size since legalized gambling came in. I mean, they're talking about, franchises possibly selling anywhere 6 to 8 billion. But the Texans are a basket case. I mean, they have a guy, they're sitting a guy and they're not paid, like sitting him there. He's being paid 10 million to just not talk, sit in his hands, not talk to anybody. You've got a head coach there who, it's his first year. They're sacking players. They're letting them go because they're not taking tests. They're late training. And obviously in Jacksonville, you've Urban Meyer who says, I don't take too much notice what my running backs coach is doing. I got other things to do. And we saw what he did up in Ohio. Are you surprised that, these multi-billion-dollar franchises can operate in that manner when people can see it? This is not behind a curtain. This is very public.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to your point, Brian, I think the cultural tone that's struck by Cal McNair as an owner, like that's just kind of what's happened there has filtered down. And you have, I mean, I think everyone was really surprised when David Culley got the role in the offseason, but actually, he's proven to be he's a good coach, but he's dealing with a pretty hopeless situation. And I think the decision to kind of hold on trade. I mean, it's almost like they're playing for time in the end of the season about how many offers and who's going to make the best offer. But I think culturally that team, that franchise has been in a difficult spot for some time. I think like going back to when Kyle Shanahan was there as an assistant, they probably they were a playoff kind of team a lot of the time, but like I think organizationally they're dreadfully run, and we all know about the stories about the Belichickian assistants going there and the sabotage that's potentially taking place. But I just think they're a badly run organization. I contrast a little bit with the Jaguars. Khan he's an okay owner. I think he was absolutely committed to bringing Urban Meyer in. He's been, I think he's been, really courting him. He was courting him for some time before he got the role. He's there very much as the chief executive, head coach. And I think he's too hands off. He's very assistant driven. And I think you're seeing that at the moment where arguably their best player, James Robinson, is, he's not getting enough reps. And Trevor Lawrence is saying, well, he's our offense is kind of built around James Robinson, this undrafted, wonderful running back who we need to lean on. And so I think it beggars belief that franchises can be run in the way that certainly the Texans have been run. But I think it's also really important to maybe contrast that with some of the Bills, like a small town blue collar team. That's the essence of the NFL in the face of maybe the Texans. It's so important that the Bills remain in Buffalo and remain that kind of the going concern that they are, because otherwise you have money and you have an awful lot of fractious locker rooms and chief execs carrying on.
Andrew, as Michael called out at the start of the show, you cover the NFC South for us. You put up some really good articles. You're based in Atlanta. What's the general consensus on the Falcons this year? New head coach. There's been some games similar to last year where it looked like they were going to get wins, and then only to show them away. We were fortunate to be in London. The guys were in the media section. Kyle Pitts took off that day against the Jets, and we've only seen he's been a little bit sporadic. It's some good games, some kind of half-average games. He's obviously going to be a great player in the long term, but Matt Ryan may not be there in the long term.
He mightn't be, and I think what's maybe keeping Matt Ryan there in the short term is that you have maybe not a great draft class coming up. You have maybe two first-round picks, and that's probably it. I think the thing with the Falcons is that they invested in a sound, from an offensive scheme point of view, they invested in a sound head coach coming over from the Titans. I think Pitts is a great player, but as I think I said in my article, there's a litany of top NFL tight ends who really don't get a chance to fit in their first year, or maybe are not used to the maximum. And I think we're probably seeing that a little bit with Kyle Pitts. And then I think on defense, Dean Pease is doing a decent enough job. I think they really needed. I think what's really good for the Falcons is that the Dan Quinn era finished, and I think all they were kind of ragbag rovers defensively for the last couple of seasons, and I think almost like the last connection with the 28-3 team is Matt Ryan, and I think they seem to be very good at, I talked about the Vikings being just so adept at losing close games. The Falcons seem to be pretty jammy. They seem to win close games and get by. I think in terms of the group, the division rather, if you look at where the books are, I just can't see, given how competitive the NFC West is, that another team will get in. Give the idea that they have to win 3 games, that either the Saints or Panthers or Falcons would have to win 3 games to get in. I just can't see it happening. Yeah. But it's a rebuild year, and it hasn't gone all that badly. But just to top and tail what you're saying, I think Atlanta is very much a football town, college football town, and the Atlanta Falcons, or the Dirty Birds as they're known, are very much kind of second place to Georgia.
Andrew, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks, obviously, for all your coverage in relation to the NFC South for us on the Irish NFL show. But obviously, your blog, An Irishman on NFL, people should check out. Some great articles up there. And they'll find you on Twitter at Ginty82. So thank you so much for joining us this evening on Thursday Night Football. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your help and support as well. Thank you. That was fantastic hearing from Andrew. Obviously, Irishman living in Atlanta, Georgia. I wonder if you'll say hello to D. Orlando for us, boys. Have to get D. Orlando back on again soon. But massive thanks to Andrew. We'll put his stuff on social as well. Time to make picks.
Michael, just before the picks, it's actually a big anniversary, and I'm surprised that Mark didn't highlight it. The 9th of December, Mark, 9th of December 2018, the miracle in Miami. Absolutely fantastic. Walk-off win for the Dolphins over the Patriots. Lateral passes. It was wonderful. It was magic for everyone. Happy Christmas.
Grant lost his shoes at the end. Remember, he slipped.
Oh man, guys, I couldn't agree more. I absolutely love reliving it because I remember how that season finished. What was that?
I know, but for
sixth.
the rest of us, Mark, that moment, a walk-off win. Oh, it was
beautiful.
With Gronk, it was beautiful. Back there. Oh, it was magic.
I have a Miami Dolphins, very good friend of mine who's a big Miami Dolphins fan who tries to remind me that regularly, and I just say, and it's when Brady got his 6th ring, and it's when the Patriots won their 6th ring, and it shuts up everything. I actually thought for a horrible minute you were going to refer to Chris Harper and the muffed punt when Patriots were 10-0 and then lost in Denver, but no. Yeah, Miami Miracle.
I thought Colin was actually, Mark, I actually thought Colin was going to say it's the 3-day anniversary of the Patriots winning the Super Bowl in Buffalo on a windy night. But sure, we'll leave it there. And yeah, we'll have a bit of crack for that during the weekend. Irish NFL Show presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. Bonus code Irish NFL Show gets you £15.15 yo-yo, depending on where you are on the island of Ireland. Go for it, lads. T's and C's below. In terms of the exchange tonight, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the rank outsider going by Matchbook Betting Exchange, Brian. Don't give away your pick, Brian, but 2.62, Vikings 1.59, and the over and under is 44.5. Kind of 44.5-year-old Ben Roethlisberger, it seems like he is, get over 44.5 tonight.
Yes, I believe it'll be an over tonight. Yeah, I don't see why not. Well, you look at an average of what the Vikings have been putting up in the games, despite the loss last weekend, they put up good points. They've been consistently putting up good points throughout the season. I think if you go back over the games, which they lost involved, majority have been high-scoring games. So it's not against the realms of possibility that they put up 28, 30 points, and you would expect the Steelers to put up at least 14, 17 points.
If I may make an argument for the under, just in the interest of balance, the Steelers' offense has been stop-start at best. And we've talked a lot about that. Well, we've not talked a lot, but the dodgy offensive line and the Minnesota D line is powerful and can get pressure on them. And by contrast, you say, obviously, the Steelers have conceded a lot of points. The Bengals game is a prime example. But look at what the Vikings are going to put out tonight. No Thielen, a Dalvin Cook coming back 11 days after a separated shoulder. There is no guarantee, unless they rely upon the magic that is Justin Jefferson, that they're going to be effective. So
you might find Kirk Cousins
involve Vikings, but I'd say the under is.
We might see something similar to what we saw in LA on the Sunday night, where the Chargers found ways to give the ball away, like this Cousins can do, leaving a bit of a short field for the Steelers for them to punch in some touchdowns, which brings the score up. I think it's a low line. I expect it to be around 46.5. I know Colin doesn't really care what the line is on totals, but from a betting angle, and I won't be having a bet on it, but I would suggest it goes over.
Rubbish, of course I have a bet on it. That was a joke. I thought that was funny. It is quite funny. Matchbook Betting Exchange, £15, 15 yo-yo, depending upon your geographic location. Colin, I'm not going to ask you for betting, but it is time. Yeah. Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, I don't know anymore, boys. Is it week 14? The picks are presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. The Vikings are 5-7. They just got beat to the Detroit Lions last week. And the Steelers are 6-5-1. This game is in Minneapolis. We didn't get a chance to say a comment, but that was great to have Arif on. That was good crack chatting about the Vikings. And apparently you've been to Minnesota, Colin. So who's your pick tonight?
Yeah, I have. I've been to that stadium, and as Colin said, it can be quite raucous in there, but you know, things are certainly not rosy in Minnesota at the moment. This game, honestly, I think this is possibly the hardest game I've had to pick this year, because I can make a case why both of these sides will win, and I can make a case why both of these sides will lose. And for all the flack Kirk Cousins gets, he's probably having the best season of his career. And against the Lions, he wasn't helped by the fact that in their infinite wisdom, the Vikings decided to change 3 of their starting linemen, and the Lions were able to get to him. The Steelers, I think going up against your arch rivals when they come into your house after you've had your pants pulled down by the Bengals, they needed that one. Now they were helped by the fact that Lamar is really going through a bit of a slump at the moment, and TJ Watt is so effective. If TJ Watt is a game wrecker like he is, the Steelers can win this game. But Dalvin Cook is going to play. The Vikings need this more than the Steelers do. I know Colin said that, if the Steelers don't, they're out. But if the Vikings don't win, I think they are absolutely gone. The fact that they're playing Dalvin Cook, and I think even with Thielen out, Jefferson is playing at such a high level that he will have enough to exploit what has been a Steelers secondary that hasn't been fantastic. They're in and around 22, 23 in terms of their ranking for their secondary. So I'm going to go with the Vikings to win this. But if the Steelers do win it, I'm not going to be at all surprised.
I know Mark is concerned about Cook coming back so quickly after that injury, but they've also got another effective running back in Madison who on his day can be quite good. And I think he's kind of goes under the radar because Cook gets all the exposure. But we've seen games this season where he's outplayed Cook in games. It's a strange one. It's in many ways it's a good game because you don't know what to expect, and it's certainly a game that has a lot on it in terms of if one gets to the playoffs. But Mark said it again on Monday about Big Ben, and once they won that game, he didn't really do much until the fourth quarter, and that's the problem. We're not seeing Big Ben play consistently over 4 quarters, and I think Vikings offensively we are seeing more of them. So yeah, I think it's a tough one. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers were to find a way to win it, but I'm going to name with the Vikings and I'll have them win a close game.
One of my favorite Latin expressions is astra inclinat sed non obligant, which is the stars. One of my favorites. The stars indicate, but they do not oblige. You're not destined necessarily in the way in which the go. The problem is with both of these teams, you look at the pointers, you look at the way the game should go, and they go in completely the opposite direction. How, and Colin, you called it earlier, how the Vikings could go from a team beating the Packers, deservedly so, to losing to the Lions is incomprehensible. I mean, Norman Bates, Harvey Dent, the Roman god Janus, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, none of them have a patch on the 2021 Vikings, to say the least. I mean, I want to say Dr. Mike and Mr. Zimmer probably would be more appropriate the way things are gone. I don't need a Freudian analysis of the id, super id, and ego. I just want someone, somehow, some way to make sense of the Minnesota Vikings at some point. I've said time and time again, do not bet on them. Do not bet on them to win. Do not bet on them to lose. So I have no idea what they're going to do today. I mean, there's no logic. There's no point in trying to find logic or sense to this game in any regard. Look, I'm very conscious, and Michael's had a couple of jabs today. So, in fairness, both of these teams are going to be struggling to get a winning record. In that regard, they share a lot with the Denver Broncos, who don't remember what a winning record looks like. But my bet is that neither of them will leave today with a winning record. The Steelers will be perfectly at 500 in the equivalence that Colin was talking about earlier, and the Vikings will leave somehow, some way at 6-7, and Mike Zimmer lives at least to the end of the season.
I had my job a couple of weeks ago, but thanks for that. Thank you very much. For me, you're talking about Mike Zimmer. I don't think Mike Zimmer is going anywhere until the very end of the season, regardless if the Steelers were to win tonight. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I've seen a lot of boys on Twitter going, "Oh, get him out!" Why is the bop? Why is the bop? It's grand. Look, there's numerous different situations that I can try and compare to here. For anybody in NI, I'm comparing the Vikings right now to the spend local card, which works one week and doesn't work the next. Why operate something like that if it's not going to work? That's a bit what the Vikings are like to me now. I want to thank the NI executive for that. My card won't work. But more importantly, the Vikings are a bit like Armagh Gaelic team, 20 minutes up the road from me. They think they're better than what they truly are. Kieran McGeeney's a bit like Mike Zimmer. All the talk about him, and then he just fails to deliver. The Vikings go out one week and beat the Packers. They mess up the next week. And let's be quite clear here. This 6-5-1 Steelers team are nowhere near where they need to be at. But if you have Adam Thielen and they're going to go for Justin Jefferson all night, any idiot knows if you cover Justin Jefferson tonight and try and stop the run game for the Vikings, this game is going nowhere for the Vikings. For me, I'm taking the Steelers on the money line. I'm taking the Steelers on the over. I'm taking the Steelers on the under, and I'm taking the Steelers plus 3.5 tonight. I don't see any way in which the Vikings win this game, boys, tonight. I can't see. After watching that Lions game and after putting my whole fantasy week on it, I'm taking the Steelers 100%. If the Steelers can stop the Ravens on defense, 100%. 100%. All in.
You don't
Lock
see
of the week.
any way.
No, I'll tell you why, because they're going to mess it up. They're going to mess it up completely tonight. Completely. Technically, all they need is for Kirk Cousins to go out and have a decent game. He'll throw 2 or 3 picks on primetime TV tonight.
He's not one for prime
The
time.
NFL.
I think he's only had one.
He's
win
not.
in
He's
prime
not.
time.
He's not. And he'll go out tonight and he'll mess it up. Whereas Big Ben will do his Mac Jones.
I think he's got the
Thursday night is
lowest
prime.
interception
Here
percentage
you
in
go,
the NFL, Michael Kirk Cousins. He's got the lowest interception percentage this year in the NFL.
Hey, but he's
Just
gonna have a
throwing
bad
it
night
out there
tonight.
as a relevant.
He's gonna have a bad night. He's gonna have a bad night.
He might. He might.
Steelers 24.
I can see.
Vikings 14.
To be honest, it is a difficult game to call. It's probably one of the most difficult games we've had in the Thursday night to call. Like, whilst we're all picking the Vikings, we're putting up an argument as to why you shouldn't pick them. America said don't put your money on the Vikings no matter what. Michael's putting money on them, on the Steelers to win, the under, the +3. He's going to be very rich in the morning, or hoping that card works again to get himself a coffee.
Brian, I don't think any of us. Sorry, I don't think any of us feel confident necessarily in the Vikings. I think there's a little bit of like uncleanness to the whole pick in many respects, but definitely Michael's 100% guarantee. No way that the Vikings could win. I admire your bravado, sir, and your confidence.
The Steelers blew me away on Sunday, boys. They blew me away on Sunday.
In what way? With their dominant win.
They won the game, didn't they? That's all they have to do.
So did the Patriots on Monday night. So did the Patriots. Now, one thing though, Mark, one thing. Whilst you're right, the Denver Broncos have struggled. The Super Bowl winners not going to the playoffs. Setting a record there. Before you fell in love with Mike Gesicki and gave up on your first love, Tom Brady, Tom. There's only one team in the NFL Tom doesn't have a winning record against. That's the Denver Broncos.
The Denver Broncos, absolutely. And he has a losing record at Mile High Stadium and has lost more playoff games to the Denver Broncos than anyone else. Yeah, conscious of that.
Guys, look, I don't think we can finish the show without having an even balance here. We haven't mentioned the New York Giants tonight, which is good. But I just wanted to let you know that in Joe Judge's press conference yesterday, and I sent it on to Colin today, Joe Judge said, we're having a really good time out in Arizona because he took the team out there for the week. And he said the vending machines are working well and we have it spaced out well because of the COVID protocols. Thanks for that, Joe. Nice one.
But at least in Arizona, they can't get on a boat somewhere and start taking pictures and stuff.
But might as well be on a boat at this stage.
And I mean, in the interest of balance, I mean, we haven't called out enough about the Tennessee Titans leading their division, the Arizona Cardinals still with the NFL best record, and of course, the team leading the NFC East, who deserve all the praise possibly going, Brian, the Dallas Cowboys. We should flag. Good man, Jura, for the comment as well. That's brilliant.
I mean, I'm making a pick. I was impressed with the Steelers' run game and the passing game the overnight, even though Ben had 262 yards. They somehow got it done. They'll somehow get it done.
Did you not see the first 3 quarters?
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Hold on. I've messed up. Hold on.
It is also another anniversary. It's the anniversary of the stylish but illegal IKEA monkey that was found in Toronto, if you remember that from about a decade ago, wearing this kind of puffer jacket. I think that surely is a sign that it's the Vikings night.
So I'm going 24-14. What's your score prediction, Colin?
There'll be 2 points in it. There won't even be a field goal in it with the Vikings involved. I have no idea what it'll be.
Brian, have you got again? Or
27-20 to the Vikings.
I have no idea. 24-20 Vikings.
Well, that was definitely the screenshot moment there. Mark's face. We'll be back at the weekend to preview week 14, and hopefully I can open the show with an edited montage laughing at Kirk Cousins. Boys, thanks very much for joining us. Yeah, good crack.
Yeah,
As
great.
always.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
night, boys.
See you at the
Oh, hold on.
weekend.
Christmas.